Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really great guest today. Her name is Tonya Baillargeon. She's a holistic cancer wellness specialist. She is a 17-year cancer survivor, Reiki master, has been studying herbs for several years, etc., etc. I'm so excited to hear her story, to hear the words of wisdom that she brings. Thank you so much for being with me today, Tonya.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate being here.
I'm just really excited to talk to you and just hear what you have to share, because I know this topic in and of itself is a very heavy one and could be a very scary one. And being from the other side and working with people who've gone through it, I really can't wait to really just dive in and hear what you have to share about it. Would you first love to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? What do you do? What do you offer? Maybe a little more detail than what I shared.
Sure. So, as a cancer survivor, I think I'm uniquely positioned to be able to help people navigate the holistic side, right? So, your medical team handles basically standard of care, which is surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, depending on what your diagnosis is. But there's so much more that you need as an individual. You need mental health, you need mentorship, you need family relationships. You need your holistic wellness blueprint. That's where I come in. I help individuals who are diagnosed navigate exactly what their body wants, what they want to lean into, whether it's Reiki, whether it is singing bowls or aromatherapy or herbs or whatever wellness holistic that they want to add in, because I think it is important to marry the mind, body, and spirit aspect of it.
Yeah. And it's important too, I think, to have more than just the medical left brain side, because that could be so clinical and so like black and white when we're so much more than that, right? And that's where you tie in the mind, body, and soul. So I'm so glad that you're
Yeah.
able to be that for those people and help them shift their perspective from what they're probably hearing when they're at the hospitals and dealing with the doctors.
Right. So the dis-ease started in your spirit, in whether it was trauma or emotional damage or somewhere, it's some issue that you weren't able to resolve for one reason or another, and that can lead to disease. So you do have to do the shadow work, the emotional side. You have to clean the garbage up. You have to accept the responsibility for what you may have contributed due to inaction or poor actions, bad decisions. What are you eating? Are you eating the things that you need to be eating? Are you sleeping properly? Are you hydrating correctly? What contributing factors have you added that you now need to change in order to flourish during this time? And it can be a little harsh, right? Like, you have to take ownership for your part in the problem so that you can take ownership in how to solve the problem.
I love that. It touches on so many different things, but a lot of it comes back to that accountability piece. And is that hard for your clients to accept that idea that some of what they were doing put them in this place? Because I know that, especially with cancer, that could be such a difficult thing to try and suggest to someone else going through it.
Well, not everybody decides that they want to work with me, and I'm upfront about it, but not everybody chooses to fight for their life either, right? There are people that get the diagnosis and go, okay, and then lay down and die. So you have to be willing to fight for your life. You have to be willing to do some work in the spiritual, emotional, woo-woo side, as well as through the physical aspect of going through all of the procedures and following what your oncologist recommends. And yeah, it's hard. Like, taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your entire life, right? Because that's what it is, right? And now you're fighting for your life. And if you don't change certain things, your chances of survival are obviously impacted by that.
It's definitely one of those things, like you said, you have to make the choice to do something about your situation. See, I'm all for accountability. So over here, I'm like, yes, to everything you're saying, but I'm just like, I can imagine if someone that's not awake, they would be like, how dare you? You know what I mean? But again, like you said, not everyone's going to want to work with you. And so those that want to work with you either are curious about what you're suggesting and maybe have never experienced that before, or they're like me and they're like, yes, let's dive in, get all that shadow work out of the way.
I dare because I did the work. I was there. I was in the horrible position. I didn't exercise. I ate for absolute garbage. My sleep was off. I like taking accountability. it's part of the journey. You have to. And the more accountability that you take, the more control over the situation you have. And when you receive a diagnosis such as cancer, you feel like you are completely out of control. You feel like somebody punched you in the face. You feel like you can't breathe. And so that the first thing that we do, I offer a free 30-minute conversation where we talk about things like this, like what are your expectations? How would you like me to help you? And are you willing to put in the actual work? Because if you're not, I'm going to release you back into the wild. There are other coaches out there that might be willing to work with you in that scenario. But I dare because I care, because I've been there, I've done the work, I've seen how it impacts. So no, not many people know that a healthy uterus is about 4 ounces. So when I had my hysterectomy, my uterus was over 10 pounds.
Wow.
I had about a 5% chance of survival. So I had to get real about what I did to contribute to it, and then how, from appointment to appointment. So I decided that I was going to do a couple of things. The first thing that I did is I decided that every morning when I changed my underwear, I was going to visualize putting on Wonder Woman's underwear, because Wonder Woman doesn't die. So that was a physical representation of me actively deciding to live every day. So you make that choice. And some days it was a lot easier than other days. And then there were things that I changed. And I'm going to be absolutely honest. I did not change my nutrition at all at that time. I didn't change my exercise, but I absolutely changed my mindset. There was Reiki, there was raindrop technique aromatherapy once a week, which was absolutely fantastic. There was walking barefoot, doing the grounding activity. There was dancing in the moonlight. There were detoxifying baths. I walked around with crystals in my bra, like sound healing and all this other beautiful stuff that I added in. And I sat down with my oncologist. I'm like, I'm doing all of this. He rolled his eyes and he said, no to the herbs. And I said, why? And he said, because the herbs will counteract the chemotherapy, and you need the chemotherapy at the levels that it is. And then he went on to say, as long as you don't put it in your mouth, I don't care. And that was enough agreement for me, because I felt it was important that the oncologists know exactly what I was doing, because everything that you're doing does impact your healing journey.
Yeah. So I actually really love that you're bringing in the other aspects of your healing, not just, what you receive from the doctors, but also the more spiritual side. And mindset is powerful. I've heard so many stories of people changing their genes, basically, even just from their mindset. It sounds like you basically made the choice, I'm going to survive this. And then you found different means to make yourself believe it. That is what really helps you. It's the belief, right? And the other tools that you had just helped you push that belief forward. So that way you really grabbed onto it and was like, yes, I believe this no matter what. I love that even though the doctor kind of was like rolling his eyes at you, it didn't keep you from still pursuing that more spiritual side. You needed that and you didn't let that go. But you still kind of, it sounds like you still did what the doctors wanted you to do, but you didn't completely do everything that they were suggesting because you knew you needed more.
Well, exactly. So the doctor is a specialist in what he specializes in, which is allopathic medicine, which and the standard of care is the surgery, the radiation, and or the chemotherapy. So that is what he specializes in. I specialize living in my body 24/7. So I was already predisposed to holistic things. I grew up with energy healing and working with crystals and things like that, and aromatherapy. All of that was already part of my life. So I leaned really hard on that, because that was part of my spirituality. And that for me was comfort. And when you're going through the worst thing in your life, literally, you need all of the comfort that you can bring in, and also having the right support network. I had a friend who was a former nurse, and she knew what was going on. So she actually drove me to the appointment where I got my diagnosis. And I suspected, obviously, because I was having symptoms, but suspecting you have cancer and hearing the words out of the doctor's mouth are two different things. When the doctor said you have cancer, her lips kept moving, and all I heard was Charlie Brown's teacher, womp, 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 womp. And so when we got back to my friend's house, she sat me down on the massage table and she's like, okay, today is the day that you are allowed to scream at God. You're allowed to cry, to be mad. However, all of that stops tomorrow because we're going to kick cancer's ass. And having an environment full of people like that really supported me in my journey. So you want to load your network, your close network, whether it's your family or your friends or Facebook community, with individuals that are going to support you on that kind of level, because you are going to need it.
How fortunate though that your friend was like, nope, we got this. And it's like she already knew what you needed. That's such a blessing. How long did you fight cancer for? How long was your battle for?
So I was diagnosed in March of 2007. I had my hysterectomy in the beginning of May. And then I spent it basically, it was about 10 months from nose to toes on the actual physical side of fighting the cancer, and surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. Because of how aggressive my cancer was, I had to go inpatient for my chemotherapy because they had to give me something called rescue drugs before, during, and after my chemotherapy. Most people get to go in, they get hooked up, and they sit there for 8 hours, and then they get to go home. Not me. So if you have to be there for a certain number of hours, you have to become inpatient. So I would get my treatments 4 days a month, and then I would be released and allowed to recuperate for the rest of the month, and then come back in for another treatment. After all of that glorious nonsense, and they released me back to the wild to to be normal, and be in society. There was no mental health. There was no, I mean, come back in and get your annual pap smears and your checkups, but there was no actual other support given to me. And so I was a little bit depressed. And my friend said to me, Of course you're having problems. The thing that defines your femininity tried to murder face you." And I was like, oh. And so then I spent the next 5 years redeveloping a connection with my divine feminine. And that's really where the work was. Like, going through cancer, honestly, was the cakewalk, but no hair and no womb, and societal expectations on what a woman is all contributes to that. And unfortunate, but a lot of women go through that, and nobody's talking about that part of a cancer diagnosis, whether it's uterine, ovarian, or breast cancer. Nobody's talking about the reconnecting to your feminine core, because you need to redevelop that.
I have a friend, I mean, not a close friend, but I've been following her journey. She went through breast cancer and got to kind of witness that on her end, where she'd share posts about feeling like her femininity was stripped away and having to like rediscover herself. And that's just shocking that they just sent you out. And that's probably, your story is probably like every other story, they're just like, you survived, yay, go. It's more like, well, now what? And now where do I go? And now who am I? And how do I even embark in this new world where I survived, but now what? So part of being a holistic cancer wellness specialist, do you work with people specifically who are going through cancer, or for people who are coming out of cancer, or both?
Both, because my journey was so long and broad and expansive. I can help you at the beginning of your journey, or I can help you when you hit the, oh gosh, how do I start reconnecting with my divine feminine? Or even caregivers, right? Like, the most common question that I get from a caregiver is, how do I help? And my answer to that is, well, you're going to have to ask your loved one, because each individual has their own needs, and they're going to have different things that they want. So there's no universal canned answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. So what you do is you help cater to what their individual needs are, because everyone's different. That's amazing too, because some coaches or wellness, at least coaches, some coaches come in with the same cookie cutter, like, this is what we're going to do for you for every single person.
Can't do that. I actually have a holistic wellness blueprint. So it's sort of a la carte, right? Like, so what do you need? What is your body telling that you need for what you're going through right now? Sometimes when you say the word Reiki, somebody's like, well, that clearly means that your body is not interested in that. So then we just go through and we talk about what works for them, what their specific concerns are. You can't slap a generic thing on this. Everybody's journey is tailored to them.
100%. That's amazing that you're able to do that with both those that are struggling with cancer, like now, and those that are coming out of it, and helping guide their hand and take them by the hand in a way that you didn't get. I'm a big fan of seeing like people going through it, because then when you're able to look back then you can see why you are where you are and why you're doing what you're doing, because you had to go through that. Now be able to help others in a way that you didn't receive and being able to give back in that way. And that's like one of my favorite things about talking to people on my podcast is hearing those similar stories of, I went through this difficult thing. It didn't break me. And now I'm here to help guide and be a light for others that need that guidance that I didn't get.
Precisely. And one of the core reasons that I decided that this is my purpose in life is I want to be the resource I needed and did not have. Absolutely. I mean, there's stuff that I'm still finding out 17 years later that I didn't know were resources. And I'll give you an example on that. I drove myself to my radiation appointments. And let me tell you, worse than a drunk driver, honestly. It should not have been operating heavy machinery. But I didn't know that there are nonprofits out there with volunteers that will take you to your doctor appointments. I didn't know that until like 10 years later. With the internet, things are a lot easier to find all of the nonprofits that are out there helping people going through this, whether it's housing your loved ones so they can come in and be around you while you're going through your treatment or things like that.
That's cool, but that's part of the journey, right? You don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And then as you learn and know more, now you have more to offer and more to suggest and more to guide. So with everything that you're doing, do you feel like you found your purpose being a holistic cancer wellness specialist?
Absolutely. It's fulfilling and I get to help people. It is how I give back. If I can spare even one individual some of the horrors that I went through because I'm sharing my story and because we're talking about it. I also have a podcast where I come on and I give away a lot of knowledge for free because I want people to know exactly what some of the side effects are. Because you sign release forms and the font is this big. Nobody actually talks about what some of those side effects might be, right? So sexual dysfunction, pooping your pants in public, losing your teeth, losing your hair, radiation burns, rashes, and a host of other things. And that's just physical stuff. We don't talk about any of the mental stuff because as a society, we don't talk about that, which is absolutely horrific, right? You can't control your situations. Only you can control how you respond to them. So walking the walk sometimes is difficult when I'm out in public and my body's like, hey, we have to go to the bathroom and take 2 steps. And they're like, okay, we're done. Like, and there I am in the grocery store with poop in my pants. That is a challenge, right? So now we walk around with a kit that has baby wipes and change of underwear, a change of pants, and sometimes just a sweater. So you just cover it up and leave because it's too much to try to clean up in a bathroom. That's my reality, but it's okay. And the more we talk about human experience, the more people are willing to talk about it. Every survivor that I've talked to talks about their side effects. And the medical organization is just now really starting to do research on long-term side effects. When I was diagnosed, people weren't really living. And now people are living full, robust lives after cancer. So they need to. My philosophy on it is the medical society is worried about treating you and they're not worried about what may happen to you later if they manage to save your life. And because of the fact that 1 in every 2 people will have some kind of cancer before they die, that is actually the current statistic according to the American Cancer Society. Oncologists are overwhelmed. You can't just call up an oncologist and make an appointment. You have to be referred. And if you call, they'll give you an appointment a year later. And I'm not exaggerating. Like they're so overwhelmed. So there's a lot that needs to be overhauled in our entire system. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon. We need to support in other ways, which is where mentorship comes in, especially from individuals who have already been there.
Yeah. And I would imagine that what you do is kind of a unique niche. And so, there probably needs to be more coaches out there, but at least there are people like you for those that are needing that kind of support and looking for it. What is it about what you do specifically that lights you up, that, makes you know that you're like really doing what you're supposed to be doing?
When I can help an individual avoid a certain circumstance. That lights me up. Sharing my story, talking, hearing their stories, that lights me up. I'll give you an example. So when I was diagnosed originally, there were no markers in my blood. There was the pap smear was fine, the ultrasound, the transvaginal ultrasound, the sonohystogram, all of that came back fine or inconclusive. They actually had to do a D&C to find my cancer, which is kind of horrifying because it was over 10 pounds. A couple of years ago, I was having some gastro issues and I thought I might have colon cancer because anytime that you come out of a cancer journey, everything is cancer, right? Like it's kind of hard to get that monster out of your head. So I went to the gastroenterologist and we followed up and I ended up going to basically a blood oncologist. And during our conversation, she's like, your blood works fine. You don't have cancer. And I said, I had over 10 pounds of cancer in my body and there was not a marker in my blood. The look on this is her specialty, right? Blood oncology is her specialty. She looked like I hit her in the head with a 4x4. She had never heard there would be no markers in the blood. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, are you serious? This is your specialty? Like, I didn't have this conversation with her, but like the look on her face was like she didn't believe me. If by me educating this one doctor who specializes in this, so now when other people come in there and talk about their symptoms, you won't immediately dismiss it because there's no markers in their blood because of that conversation. It's things like that. That's what lights me up is when I can help people directly or indirectly just by opening my mouth and talking about my experiences and encouraging others to do the exact same thing.
That's scary. And that really goes to show like why some doctors just are dismissive because they don't know and they think they know, but they just don't know. Hopefully she took what you said and actually like sat with that. And next time, a patient came in, she thought twice before immediately dismissing them.
I got the sense that it really resonated with her. They go Doctors are absolutely educated. They go through a lot of education. However, the medical field is advancing exponentially all the time. And even when they specialize in a thing, they don't know everything. And unfortunately, some of them get a little snotty when you try to educate them. And what I like to tell people is they're highly educated, but you're educated on you. You live in your body 24/7. So when something is now working differently in your body, you have a right to explore that. And if that doctor is not listening to you, you are within your rights to fire them. You're allowed second opinions, third opinions, 18th opinions. If you know there's something going on in your body, follow it up. That's the only reason I'm still here, is because I knew there was something going on with my body. Fortunately, my gynecologist was well on board and she's like, well, this test came back negative or inconclusive. The next step would be blah, blah, blah. Do you want to proceed? I didn't receive any pushback from her, which was such a blessing. I know that not everybody has that privilege. Advocate for yourself. And if you can't do that, find somebody who will. I will happily talk to your doctor for you. I can do it polite in the beginning, but then I get a little rowdy.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
It's there's a card in my tarot deck that I like to literally use that example. It's the Page of Swords. And that one, I like to say it's all about learning to communicate and advocate your needs and your experiences, your opinions, your beliefs, and knowing that you deserve to be heard. And I actually use that example with a doctor because a doctor might come back and say, you're fine, go home. And you're like, no, but my experience of myself is that I'm not okay. And even if the doctor tries to come back and be like, well, I went to school to be a doctor, you didn't, you don't know what you're talking about, being able to still come back and be like, no, but you're not in my body. You're not me. And so it's, even if someone's more experienced, it doesn't take away your personal experience of something.
Correct. You do have the right to fire the doctor. You also have the right to call the insurance company and tell them about the experiences that you're having with the doctor. And if they get enough complaints, they can be demoted from in-network. If
Wow.
they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will be investigated by the insurance companies. That's a thing. You can also now Google's out there. You can Google review them. So it's important to look at those reviews. It's important to talk to other people who are experiencing the same things that you are. And with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, finding communities of individuals that are going through similar symptoms is easier. I keep hearing story after story on TikTok. TikTok helped me diagnose myself, which is horrifying in the scheme of things, but also really beautiful because now you're better prepared to go to your doctor. And the more meticulous you are with your notes, and I highly recommend keeping some sort of medical tracker that you can buy them online. I provide one. It keeps all of your medical records in one spot. And if you go into a new doctor with a binder full of, well, this is what this doctor said. We've done this test already. This is where we're at. This is what I think it is. So we need to do the specialized testing to learn that. And it's harder for them to combat and harder for them to ignore you if you have physical evidence in your hand. It's easier to ignore words coming out of somebody's mouth and much harder when you have physical evidence.
I mean, it's sad that you even have to go to that length, though. I experienced that with when I was getting a pap smear. I was having symptoms of a prolapse, and I only know that because I was Googling my symptoms, and that's what came through. And so I remember mentioning that to the gynecologist, which I never went back to her after this experience because it wasn't a good one. But she made me feel so much shame for Googling. She's like, "Oh, you're Dr. Google." But I was right. She even confirmed, "Oh yeah, you have a small prolapse." And I mean, wasn't a big deal. It wasn't something I had to do anything with at the time, but it was still like, but I was right. And you wouldn't have checked for that if I didn't ask you to, and I wouldn't have
Right.
asked you if I didn't look it up.
Right. And your snarky response was not required. Not only does it make me feel bad for advocating for myself, right? Like this is part of the problem. You and your little God complex because you think you went to school is a little annoying sometimes. And there are wonderful providers out there, and there are some not so wonderful providers out there. A friend of mine says something that's funny but not funny, and it's C's get degrees. So you don't know what your doctor graduated with. You don't know how well they assimilated the knowledge. They may have snuck by with a C-.
That's scary.
It's kind of terrifying, but like it's the reality, right? Average, C is average, right? So do your research, find your exceptional doctor because they're out there, and talk to people. There are communities that will help you find the right providers.
Yeah. And it's just a shame that, there should be more kind of like I feel like there's reforms that need to happen in different areas. I think doctors is one of them too, is also, a little bit more bedside manner for some that didn't quite pick up on that one. And also learning how to listen to their patients and know that again, like that they don't have a God complex. They might think they do, but they're humans just like we are. So
Yeah.
is there a particular thing particular struggle that your clients all have in common? Like one, I mean, I'm sure there's several, but is there one in particular that comes to mind that they struggle with? And what advice do you have for maybe someone that's listening that isn't working with you, but maybe struggling with that thing?
A lot of individuals have the mindset problem, adapting the right mindset. So that is the first thing that we work through is how to build your alter ego, the best version of yourself. Whether it's grandma, like you pick the qualities that you want to bring in. So who in your family is fearless? You can mix and match. It doesn't have to be one person. Is it grandpa's stubbornness? Is it grandma's ruthlessness? Is it whoever, right? So list the qualities that you want to bring into your life. Make a beautiful list. For me, it was a Wonder Woman. Like I used all of Wonder Woman's qualities, right? It can be a character. It could be the character you make up. It could be the super version of yourself. However you want to phrase it, but just make a list of the qualities that you want, and every day do your best to emulate those qualities. So that's where we start. We start with that to get you into the right page, because fear, anxiety, depression are impacted by how your mind is thinking. I have literally watched individuals get their diagnosis, accept their diagnosis, and transition. That's the reality. Some individuals just choose to do that. So the mindset there is, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to accept that. For others, that is unacceptable. And if it's unacceptable, you already got your mindset in a good spot. And then there's working through how to relieve your stress, how to manage your fears and your anxieties, panic attacks, and things like that.
That is such good advice. I mean, for anything too, not even just cancer. I mean, yeah, it's coming in with the visualization. I love what you're suggesting about basically creating the traits that you want to embody to help you fight this thing. And that can come from anything. That can come from your favorite celebrity, right? Or like you said, a fictional character that you created in your mind.
Right. It's sort of like building your ultimate D&D character. You are your ultimate D&D character, or your like your gaming character. Like if you video game or whatever, right? When you're putting the stats in, build how you want. So you can do that with yourself. Why can't you do that with yourself? So get out a sheet of paper and decide what stats you want to have and do that.
Have you ever offered visualizations for like them meeting their future self after they've beat the cancer?
Yes. When you're walking in the cancer journey, it is so hard to see what might be after. And the more you connect with what kind of a beautiful life that you have after, the easier it is to get there.
What we hear is you have to see it to believe it, but it's the opposite. It's you have to believe it and then see it. And that's so hard. I mean, that's hard for people who aren't going through a cancer battle, right? It's hard just
Yeah.
for everyday people to do that. But being in the cancer realm, it's probably even harder. But it is taking that belief and saying, I'm going to be on that other side and I'm going to envision what that's going to look like. And that's going to be like that's what I'm going to hold on to until I'm there.
I, Ritualization of things is super important, and it could be creating a morning routine. The book that you're reading, journaling, one meditation that you really like, some breath work, and then you can have your like ritualized sleep activity. I'm going to turn off all my electronics 45 minutes before I go to bed, and then I'm going to read a little bit, and then I'm going to make sure that my room is cool, and I set the aromatherapy diffuser. Ritualizing portions of your life, and it can be small, right? Like it doesn't have to be big. And then you end up with these structured portions of your day and you look forward to them. And it's easier to maintain once you start making them habitual.
Yeah, I could see how that would be also very grounding because you have that thing that you look forward to every day that's you can expect. It's familiar. It's something that you know will always be there while you're, trying to find your footing.
After doing it for a while, you know how it makes you feel. So you have an expectation. So even if you are in a bad spot or having a rough time, when you get to that, whatever that is, you step into it and go, okay, well, I know that my breathing is going to change and that I'm going to calm down. And it happens automatically after a while. So you
Right.
just step into that space, or even if it is putting the bathrobe on and then visualizing what the bathrobe represents to you, the peace and the relaxation and being ready to go take your bath and be part of that winding down from your day, removing all the grind from outside and rejuvenating yourself.
Yeah, this is kind of getting into like building new neural pathways kind of a thing, but it's basically like it's automatic. Like you're saying, the moment you do the thing, the neural, I don't know how it works, but it's in your brain. It's like this is your comfort. So it's just like it's not the same thing, but kind of similar. When I come home, my favorite thing to do is put on my slippers. I want to get out of my shoes. I want to put my slippers on, and that's where I live in my slippers when I'm home. And it's
It's
something that I look forward to it. It's such a small thing, but I just feel so like I'm in my slippers. This is good.
it's Pavlov's bell, right? So you ring the bell, and so the slipper brings comfort, the bell brings food, right? So you set up that so your body expects to do this thing when that thing happens. Absolutely.
How long have you been a holistic coach for a holistic wellness specialist?
About a year. I did the journey, and that cancer scare that I had a couple years ago, I interpreted that as the divine 2x4 to the back of the head. Like, hello, we have given you all of this beautiful knowledge that you can help people. And I was like, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry I was not paying attention. Thank you for the 4x4, right? So I stepped into it at that time, and it's so fulfilling.
That's awesome. So it's fairly new still. So from what you've learned in this last year, what's one lesson that your work has taught you that you think everyone else should learn?
I think that finding your true purpose in life really is super critical because once you find what you're supposed to be doing, the work is not as worky.
You love it, right? You're
Yeah,
authentic. Oh,
yes. Yeah, it's all I can talk about. People are like, "Can you please talk about something other than helping people through their cancer journeys?" I'm like, "No, I really cannot." They're like, "How about talking about something else?" I'm like, "Oh, would you like to know about Reiki or aromatherapy?" And they're like, Stop." But they're teasing. And finding your purpose in life is finding your joy. It's finding the reason for your existence on this planet. And there are coaches and mentors out there that teach you how to do that.
well, I've kind of experienced something similar. I recently found tarot. Like I've been reading tarot since high school, but like I haven't done it professionally. And so when I stepped into my spirituality during COVID, I stepped into reading tarot, and then that helped lead me to realize, oh no, I'm not just a tarot reader, I'm a channel. Okay. So there's like so much more to it than that. But the moment I started reading tarot, which was me stepping into this role of guiding others as a channel, it was the first time I ever felt like me. It was like the easiest job I've ever done. It just came so naturally, and it's just gotten even more natural over time. And so it's like, okay, it may not be tarot forever, because recently I've been getting these downloads that, oh no, you're not a tarot reader, you're more than that. I don't know what that means yet, but
Akashic records.
oh, I should definitely look into that. Yeah.
You should, because that's what's coming through. I'm sorry. Like I sometimes get downloads too, right? Tarot is a gateway to other spiritual practice, mediumship and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely lean on my cards a little. Like it's getting to the point now, like my cards are my tool. They're the things that I pull out my cards and I open up like a channel, but I can't just open that up like a channel without my cards. So now I feel like it's almost becoming a crutch. So I'm not sure what
Yeah.
to do with that yet. I now know that my purpose is guiding others through being a channel. Again, I don't know where that's taking me, but when you're able to find that thing that lights you up and helps others, yeah, you can't stop talking about it. I do the same thing, and I feel like I probably talk too much about it too, but I love it. I can't help it.
Yep. If it's a crutch, you have to not use it as a crutch.
I know. I love the cards though.
How
For
many
those,
decks do you have?
oh well, no. So I'm not crazy like that. Um, actually, gosh, there's a really funny story with my cards, because I had one deck for years, for like 10 years. And I was always like, I'd be in tarot groups and I was like, I'm just a one deck gal. Like, that's fine. And then when I started reading professionally, I was like, someone recommended, oh, well, you should get a separate deck for when you read for people and you keep your deck separate. And I was like, that makes sense. So I bought a new deck and I fell in love with it. And my other deck, I basically realized, oh, I outgrew that other deck. Now I've got this one. And then I started doing events where I, go to like corporate events, bridal showers, and whatever else. And so I got that same kind of recommendation of, oh, if you're reading for people, like in an event setting, you should have a different deck for that. So, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And anyways, I use that one the most, my newest deck, but I do kind of go back and forth. But I'm not crazy about like keeping a ton of decks. They really have to speak to me. So I only have 3, which is very minimal for being a tarot reader.
It is, and then you're gonna start with the okay. So I did the Celtic cross spread, but I also have to do this other spread for them. So I need a second deck. Now you got 2 decks on the table.
I've not gotten there yet.
Yet. I like how you said yet, because it's a thing. Ask me how I know.
I love it. From here, I'd love to switch over. We've already kind of talking spiritual, which is cool. So we're on the right topic. I'd love to switch over to synchronicity story time and ask if you have any crazy synchronicity that you can't explain that you'd love to share.
I do. It is crazy. So I was diagnosed with cancer on March 27th of 2007 at about 10 in the morning. My appointment was somewhere between 10 and 11. 10 years prior to the exact date and almost the same time, I divorced my first husband.
Wow. That's crazy.
It is. And it's weird. It is weird. I have another synchronicity that is also really bizarre. So when I met my current husband, he and my father have the same birthday. Me and the eldest child share the same birthday, 30 years apart and 30 minutes apart. And middle child and my mother have the same birthday.
So that particular, those days, like pay attention. Like those days sound like they're magical in your family.
They
and
are.
Maybe in your husband's family too. Cause like I've heard about things like that where like certain days people come back and they're born and Like my daughter's dad, he was born on the same day as his mom's birthday, and how does that even happen? But when you have it happening more than once and there's several of them, it's like, okay, that's weird. That's like extra bizarre.
It is. It is. And every time I tell it to somebody, they're like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something about
Yeah.
this date, maybe look into like your ancestral like history. Maybe there's something like significant.
Well, I'm not sure. So like it's a little weirder, right? Like so the middle child and my mom, the birthday is in April, but for the rest of us it's we're all Virgos and it's September 5th and 7th.
Interesting.
So we have birthday week.
Oh, well, that makes it a little easier, I guess. Oh, that's cool. So April, so Virgos and Aries?
Taurus.
Taurus. Oh, okay. Oh, so very earthy. Very earthy.
Having 3 Virgos live in the same house at one time, and then a Gemini.
Oh,
and a Taurus.
Gemini.
The poor Gemini had no chance.
I think being able to learn how to be grounded is good for Gemini. So maybe. Oh, that's cool. So my final question, do you believe that everyone has a purpose?
Absolutely.
Yeah, same here. I think there's like, how could we not? We're all equal, right? We're all here for our own experiences.
Yeah, I think that we are all bits of God that have decided to come out and learn, and so that when we go back to God, we make God better.
I have heard that. That's something similar, and it really resonates with me. It's this idea that source, God, divine is basically we are all God and God's us, right? And God's just down here taking all these different experiences, and like that's what we are. We're like source living out their experience in a unique way, right? Well, thank you so much, Tonya, for connecting with me and doing this podcast with me. Your story is powerful. I really hope that it inspires my listeners. And if they want to work with you, if anyone's going through this or they know someone that's going through this, how can they find you?
That's super easy, and I really appreciate you asking that, Sarah. So Linktree/Power Pantaloons after Wonder Woman's underwear, right? Like that makes the most sense, right? Because it's part of my purpose, and mindset is such a huge part of that. So again, it's Linktree/Power Pantaloons.
Perfect. I will go ahead and put that in the show notes so that way they can find you quicker. And is there anything that you'd like to share before we end our conversation?
Yes, 2 things. Number 1, advocate for yourself. When you know there's something going on with your body, if something has changed, speak up and find a provider that will listen to you. And the second thing is do whatever testing is appropriate for your age, gender, and for your medical background, whether it's pap smears or colonoscopies or whatever it is, because early detection saves lives.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely many people need to hear that, myself included. I try to stay on top of those things, but yeah, our health and our knowing what's going on with our bodies is so important. Especially I'm like early 30s, but I'm starting to notice like, you know what? I need to be more on top of this stuff.
Put it in your calendar and do it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you again for speaking with me. This has been such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you're wanting more, consider joining our free Facebook community called Spirit Journey Collective, your haven for spiritual exploration and personal growth. Dive into a supportive community where sharing spiritual experiences is encouraged. Unlock the power of intuition, embark on a journey of self-discovery, and connect with like-minded souls. If this sounds like a community you'd love to plug into, the link is in the show notes below. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.